Here we go, starting with the presentation about Bitcoin and crypto, and is crypto a scam? My answer at the moment is that yes, it is, but that's mainly because of the problems with Bitcoin. I believe that if these problems could be solved, then it could be very useful. However, the way things are going, it has many of the elements of a con or a scam. At the moment, because of that, I would recommend that anyone getting involved only puts a very small amount or small portion of their savings or portfolio into it. Note, in this presentation, I'll use the terms Bitcoin and crypto interchangeably. However, basically, Bitcoin is a type of crypto, and many people, when they're talking about it, when they say Bitcoin, a lot of times people understand and realize they mean all types of cryptocurrencies. Note, I hold no certifications. This isn't advice of any kind. Fair use policy, some of the things I may talk about may be trademarked or copyrighted, but I'm using the mention of them in a limited manner that's allowed under fair use policy. So basically, summary, 6 things we're going to go over. What is money? What is Bitcoin crypto? A very short history of Bitcoin and crypto. The current situation as I see the main focus for it. Why I would classify Bitcoin and crypto currently as a scam, or at least unsecure. However, going forward, what can be done to fix Bitcoin and crypto so it is usable? Basically, anything that's money has 4 characteristics. Medium of exchange, meaning you don't need to barter for something. Instead of you and I getting together and trying to figure out if both of us have what the other wants so we can do an exchange, a barter deal. If I want to buy something from you, I give you money, and like if I give you too much money, you can give me change and other money. Measure of value, meaning it has units. If we talk about dollars, everybody knows and agrees how that is and how we divide it up. Again, if we go back to our first one, where I have something to barter, you have something to barter, the question is, how do we evaluate, what's equivalent? I might think what you have is worth 2 of mine, and I might think the same in reverse. Standard of deferred payment, meaning you can somehow save it up and use it for later, usually for paying debts. And a store of value, if you don't spend it today, you can set it off somewhere and it will still hold its value later. Pre-2008, 2009, money was only things like precious metals or paper. Now we, in theory, have digital money, Bitcoin. And there's actually still an academic discussion going on as to whether or not crypto or Bitcoin is really considered money or not. Money used to be, pre-fiat, it was gold, silver, or even salt, and basically it was the amount of wealth you were storing. Kings and governments used gold, the wealthy used silver, and workers that were traveling, I guess in ancient times I ran across, would use salt. Interesting notation for, I think it was a Milton Friedman book about money, where he talks about how money sometimes is just the representation of ownership on it. The story in the book was about a large stone that was on a boat that had sank in a pond or lagoon, and even though the stone was no longer accessible, people still used it as money because they agreed on who owned the stone. Recent times, we've had Bitcoin and crypto as a solution to transaction fees. In today's economy, most people have a bank account of businesses, and credit card fees usually around 2 or 3%. ACH transfers, those overnight things, you tell your bank to withdraw money or to pay something. The other variation on ACH, which is automated clearinghouse, is a wire fee for instant transfer. Instant transfers are usually, compared to the others, very expensive, usually a fixed amount. I think depending upon the bank, it's around $35 to $45. The reason why someone would use a wire transfer, is the money has to be available immediately, and also, and this goes back to Kramer from Mad Money talking about, is that if you're transferring millions of dollars, you don't want to lose even a day's worth of interest. So you do a wire transfer so the money transfers instantly from one bank to another. Some of the material that I've reviewed and have taken this from is the open courseware about Bitcoin and crypto by Professor Gary Gensler. It's from the fall 2018 semester, and I posted the link there. It's a multi-video course presentation that goes over all aspects. It's also interesting. He has some very interesting people in his class. One of his students there for that semester was actually a guy that set up the first internet service provider in Japan, running it out of one of the rooms in his house. And there was somebody else that also showed up that I guess is an author about several regulatory books that he wasn't even aware or thought was going to show that did. Again, if you have the time, I think it's a 17-part series, and each one is about an hour or so. Yeah, but it is very good. The main reason I see that Bitcoin and crypto was developed is basically a solution to transaction fees. Here I have the link for the original white paper that discusses Bitcoin from 2008. And the whole idea is that you wanted a system set up that would have no centralized processing like we do with credit cards or a bank now. And by doing this, you would completely eliminate or minimize transaction fees. Typical business now is probably paying around 2% to maybe 3% every month for transaction fees for credit cards. In theory, if this could be developed and rolled out on a wide enough scale, you could eliminate that. So even a small business that's, say, doing $10,000 a month in credit card transactions, they're probably incurring at least $200 a month or $2,400 a year. A fully developed crypto system could potentially eliminate that. Very short history is the first transaction was 10,000 bitcoins, and it was for, I believe, 2 pizzas delivered. The transaction was not strictly a Bitcoin transaction, since the way it worked is the guy that was offering the bitcoins in exchange for pizza posted it on a bulletin board, and he waited a few days, and finally somebody called him to accept the offer. However, the pizzas were not directly paid for. Instead, what happened is the guy that bought the bitcoins then used his own credit card to pay for the pizzas. But because bitcoins were involved in some part of the transaction, this is considered to be the first transaction for bitcoins. Over time, other cryptocurrencies came into use. Some of the more popular ones currently are like Ethereum, Dogecoin, which, as I understand, was started as a joke, and so on. Basically, what controls Bitcoin processing and supply is mining, what they call mining with computer hardware, which basically runs calculations, and when you solve them, the reward is that the owner of that gets a Bitcoin. And also, it's these computers in this network are also processing the transactions and adding it to the blockchain, which is the actual transfer of, for lack of a better term, money or value in this. So, why do I say that currently, as the way things are, that Bitcoin and crypto is a scam, and what could be done to fix it? First problem is that many of the cryptocurrencies do fail or go dark. The lecture series cited that something like 20% of the coins ever developed were no longer trading, and sometimes even the website was gone. So potentially anybody who had any money into that, unless they themselves somehow revives the processing network for that cryptocurrency, the money is just simply gone. Um, Second problem here is that, as if the first one isn't bad enough, if in a year 20% of the banks simply closed and everybody lost their money in it, people would stop using banks. But the second problem is a number of people simply lose their crypto keys that for their coins. So they quote own them, but they've lost it and no longer have any way to redeem them. And there's horror stories about that. The favorite one, I guess, there's a landfill in England that is believed to contain a laptop that contains a crypto keys for what at one point was $7.5 million worth of cryptocurrency, and they've tried to get permission to go digging through the landfill, but the town won't let them. And I compare this to gold, silver, or paper. Even if you quote lost it, unless something drastic happened, those things would probably survive. Where again, with cryptocurrency, if you lose your key, you've in effect, it's like you've burnt your money. Third objection that I have is that Bitcoin was originally developed and implemented, and it was supposed to be a way to do peer-to-peer transactions and eliminate transaction fees. Instead, now what's happening is people are using it to do secret transfers and on things that governments may not like, maybe not get taxed on, and also, leading into number 4, is that people have piled into Bitcoin and skyrocketed the price. In a little over a decade, we've gone from where 10,000 Bitcoins basically bought about, I think the estimate was $30 worth of pizza, to where now it crested at about 65,000. Then it pulled back to about 30, and I guess recently it's been rebuilding back up to 50,000. But the question is what is the intrinsic value of a Bitcoin? Is it just anything people decide it is, or is there something else going on? Or can you make a 1-for-1? There's going to be eventually 21 million Bitcoins, and you divide it by the total money supply, and maybe as the money supply goes up, that would justify the Bitcoin price going up. The fear is that a number of people that are driving the price of Bitcoin are just driving it up because the price has gone up. FOMO, fear of missing out. So they pile in, and in their world, they don't care to try to figure out what it's worth or anything. Problem is, eventually, at some point, during a price decline, the same people piling in for no reason may panic and all of a sudden to pile out for no reason, crashing the price. Processing problem. Bitcoin and crypto does work and transfer. However, it's not as fast as like a typical bank transfer of ACH or a wire or credit cards. And there are stories about it taking hours sometimes. And basically, there's nothing you can do until it processes. Sixth problem is along the lines of durability. What happens if there's something wrong with the internet or no electricity? At least if you've got cash or paper money or gold or silver, if you have that, you can exchange it for something else, or do an exchange with it. But with crypto, if the network isn't working or the electricity's out, you can't do anything with it. On top of the 7, on top of the number of coins issued, there are a number of high-profile frauds. If that happened something with a bank, they'd be at least like bank insurance or FDIC insurance. But with Bitcoin, it's like it's just gone. There's nothing covering it. Eighth problem: many coins have set-asides or reserves for the creators or miners. Again, here I have a note. Original Bitcoin, my understanding, is set aside 40% of the initial issue for the creators. So how is that good for anyone buying in? You're buying in, and you're already diluted by 40%. Thinly traded market. I've seen estimates that only 5% of the outstanding is trading on any day. So the fear is that it makes it easy to paint the tape. You know, if you've got like enough bitcoins or enough money, you can start running transactions onto the blockchains to make it look like it's going up and down and move the mob with it. Um, there's also problems with stable coins trading in the markets, where some people are questioning are they really fully backed, and there's been some fear that they're not really. So you have a problem where you've got Bitcoin that's sort of like, you know, how do you value it? But then people say, you know, they start using stable coins to start trading in the Bitcoins, and they themselves may not be fully backed. So it's like something else being used to potentially paint the tape. Paint the tape is an old stock jobber term for what, going back to when there were like stock ticker tapes for the stock transactions, and basically sometimes some groups of investors would want to make the market seem like it was going up or down. So what they would start doing is they would start doing trades amongst themselves to make other people think the market was moving in one direction or another. 10th problem that I would talk about is a strange setup or interaction with some of the Bitcoin trusts or companies in the market. You know, basically, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, basically, as people pile into it, they seem to be more okay than others in that they are more like a mutual fund. Whatever they take in, they just simply invest in Bitcoin, and that's it. MicroStrategy Incorporated seems to be more concerning in that they basically, you know, they're issuing stock and borrowing, and they use it to buy Bitcoin. You know, and then of course, if the Bitcoin goes up, then now they're showing a profit, so people start piling in, which allows them to issue more stock or to borrow more money so they can buy more Bitcoin, and it goes up. So potentially the problem with something like MicroStrategy, you've got somebody that once they become large enough, they can start moving the market, and other people start buying into them because it's going up, which allows them to buy even more Bitcoin or crypto and make it go up. The number 11 is that even though we've got all this trading in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, there's still most companies or people, they really want fiat money or some other form when they're doing transactions. No one's really dealing directly in crypto yet. And part of the problem is if if you've got savings or you're a company doing anything, you know, sometimes some of these markets are moving 5 or 10% a day. So you have a situation where, you know, people really can't operate, or companies operate, where, you know, all of a sudden one day they're making a profit, the next day because the market fluctuated they're now losing on everything they're doing, and then the next day they're back to even and things are just bouncing all over the place. 12th problem is because of the anonymous nature, the governments don't like the tracking. They don't like the fact that people aren't paying taxes on the large profits they're getting, and there's some speculation that if the governments really see this as too much of a problem, they may just simply ban the exchange of crypto into like regular stuff in the regular economy. Coinbase, I guess, is now like, you know, issuing 1099 forms and such for people's trades in crypto. 13th problem is use large amounts of power. In some of the lower cost areas for electricity in the world, that they, you know, it's causing shortages. Apparently, there's a number of illegal crypto mining operations that is sucking up all kinds of electricity. And the fear is if those machines are gone, how are you going to process Bitcoin transactions in a reasonable amount of time? In closing, I would say with all of its problems, holding a small amount of your savings or portfolio may not be such a bad idea. One thing that I think that Bitcoin would be interesting for is protection against hyperinflation. If wherever you are, something happens to the banking system and it blows up, you know, holding a small amount of Bitcoin may give you access to funds so you can like find another place to go within your country that's stable, or if 1% of your portfolio is enough, maybe it might give if it becomes necessary to even move out of country. Um, Plus, there's always the thing, what if Bitcoin keeps going up? If you only have a small amount in it, then you benefit from it then better than you would anything else. Whereas if it drops to like zero or becomes completely dead, i.e., it really turns out to be that the whole thing was just a fad and a scam. If it's only 1%, anybody can of your portfolio, anybody can live at that. One thing that I would suggest is that anyone that has a large profit from Bitcoin, take some profit or at least enough to cover your cost. I would recommend this because the worst thing that happens if you take enough to cover your cost and it turns out, like Bitcoin goes to 1 million, the worst that happens is you just don't make as much money as you'd hoped or had thought. But if something goes wrong and Bitcoin drops or goes dead, at least you covered your cost and you're not out of any money. And again, the whole idea is if you take out enough to cover your cost, you're playing with the house's money, not your own. Depending upon what happens in the market, if all of a sudden there's a crash and it comes back, if you're playing with your own money, now you're worried you're going to be losing some. Or if you're playing with the house's money, as Bitcoin or crypto, gyrates all over the place, you can at least sit back and think, is it going to recover or not? You're not like worried that you need this to do well. I'd like to thank you for your time, and please like and subscribe.